All right, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for joining today, our webinar on how to succeed in academia as a young scientist. My name is Afrida Rahman-Enyart. I'm a product manager at Proteintech, and I will be your host for today. We have a really great panel today of 4 speakers who will share their career journeys in academia and hopefully provide some helpful guidance for everyone here today. As I know that academia continues to be more and more competitive. So it'll be really interesting to hear everyone's journey. But before I introduce the panel, I just want to share a couple company slides to introduce Proteintech to you. So Proteintech is a leading manufacturer of antibodies and immunoassays. We have a really expansive portfolio of antibodies that encompass over 13,000 targets, and this takes into account many different research areas. We also offer immunoassays such as ELISA kits and IHC kits, and then we have other kits too, such as antibody labeling kits and magnetic cell separation kits. Within our Proteintech brand, we also have our humankind branded cytokines and growth factors. And all our proteins are expressed in human HEC293 cells so that you can be confident that they have native folding, post-translational modifications, and glycosylation similar to human proteins. And then we also have our Chromotech branded nanobody-based reagents. Nanobodies are essentially really tiny antibodies, and because they are so small, they can get very close to your protein of interest. So they're really ideal for clean immunoprecipitation, immunofluorescence, and protein purification. We also value the fact that we are a company for scientists by scientists. So our award-winning products are all self-manufactured, and we offer the largest in-house portfolio of antibodies for the human proteome. We also know the importance of product validation, and we use knockout, knockdown models for validation whenever possible. As antibody experts, we have in-depth knowledge of immunoassay applications, and we offer outstanding technical support. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. So today we have Dr. Cara Croft, who is a senior lecturer at Queen Mary University in the UK. We have Dr. Kristi DeBoeuf, who is a lecturer at Indiana University in the US. We have Dr. Lukasz Chrobok, who is a lecturer at the University of Bristol in UK, and Dr. Phillip Adeniyi, who is a postdoctoral scholar at Oregon Health and Science University in the US as well. So as you can see, we have a great representation for lecturers today. So it'll be really interesting to see, how all of your different journeys led you to where you are right now. So I'll go ahead and I'll pass it off to our first speaker today, Dr. Cara Croft. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing if you want to go ahead and pull up your slides. And then if you guys do have any questions for any of the speakers while they are presenting, feel free to input those in the chat or the Q&A box, and we'll have a discussion at the end with some of your questions. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to you, Cara.
Hello, everyone. So I'd like to thank Proteintech for inviting me to give my one person's advice on my journey so far in academia. And I'm looking forward to hearing other people on the panel's stories, as well as the questions that you might have, and to try and answer those to the best of my ability. So I guess I've called my little part Lessons for Young Scientists Tempted by an Academic Career. But what I think I should start off by saying is that whenever you see these panels, they're always kind of taken over by survivorship bias. So obviously I'm here saying I've got an academic career, I'm really enjoying my time. But then I've also had many friends and colleagues who've left academia and are flourishing in academic writing, are flourishing in industry, they've set up their own biotechs. So I've only known academia, I've not been in industry, I've not been in other situations, so I can only kind of comment on my situation so far in academia. So at the moment, I'm running a lab at Queen Mary University of London. Our research is focused on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, but I'd like to kind of share my story to the point here. So what I think would be key milestones in my career so far that might be of interest to people. So what I will do with this is share balance. So I think I've seen some of these presented before, and it's like, when I did my PhD, I got my Nature paper. When I did my postdoc, I got my Cell paper. When I became an assistant professor, I was corresponding author on 3 neuron papers. But I think actually my career has not been like that. And I think it's always to reflect on what at the time might have not been going so great, or I might have been worried about, but then what actually turned out okay. So in 2015, I was doing my PhD at King's College London. I was thinking about whether I wanted to stay in academia. I'd had quite a difficult PhD, but I don't think anyone's PhD is a breeze. And at this point, I was hunting for a postdoc position with no first author papers. So I think at that point, that might be an alarm bell. But in reality, to get my postdoc position, what I actually did was I was at a conference. I reached out to a couple of people whose lab that I thought I wanted to join. And I think when they met me, when I presented my research, kind of not having first author papers because of the way PhDs are in the UK, where you only have 3 years to generally do your PhD. There's not a lot of time to do the research, the thesis, and get papers out. I think there was an understanding then. So I think at that point, when I was cold emailing, so to speak, looking for postdoc positions, I think that kind of got me to the next step. So I graduated, I went on to start my postdoc. Obviously, you might tell from my accent that I am UK based, I'm British, but at that point I was lucky enough that I could kind of move away and have some freedom. So I did really want to experience research in the US. So I did do that, but I understand that not everyone has that opportunity. So that's something that I'm not able to comment on, but I'm obviously able to comment that I was able to up sticks, move to the US and kind of start a postdoc position there. So I think one critical milestone actually was that I had excellent mentorship during my postdoc position. I also had excellent mentorship during my PhD. But I think one of the triggers which I'd have never kind of thought about myself was that once I'd kind of settled in, got some preliminary data, was to apply for funding really soon. And I think getting funding on your CV is really important in an academic career. Again, at this point, I think I'd got my papers out from my PhD and I'd had one small postdoc paper. But again, I think some of the things that you see that people say is their secret to success hasn't necessarily been my particular path. So I also, I guess in 2019, I'd applied for an internal grant, but I didn't get that. I think that's kind of along the way. I'm applying for many things, also not getting many things, and we don't always see that side, but that is what an academic career is like. But at the same time, after I'd had an initial fellowship, I was able to get quite a prestigious Race Against Dementia fellowship. And I think that has really springboarded my career because that allowed me to continue some research in the US, but then also move back to the UK to establish my own lab, which is what I did in 2021. I returned back to the UK to kind of continue my fellowship. And what's nice about this is I feel like I still have my US network of scientists and collaborators, but I'm now back in the UK with this position, but with also now my UK network expanded as well. And I guess at this milestone, I was joining University College London as a UK Dementia Research Institute emerging leader, which kind of just sets you apart from being a postdoc and kind of is that first step into establishing your own lab, but you still have the protection of a senior academic for career mentoring and things like that. So I guess what is important in an academic career is getting a corresponding author paper. So that kind of got released at the end of 2022. So I have that kind of on my CV, but I also was hit with internal grant rejections. So again, it's just not kind of sometimes as you see a career presented as all glittery and fancy, that you are kind of taking these knocks whilst you also getting wins. And I think one, the wins are great, but also you might deem them losses. I think they do kind of help build your resilience, bring balance to the situation, and kind of you can act on that and take your next moves. So at 2023, my fellowship was kind of coming to an end with about 1 year left. And so I think at that point, I think at any point, if you're coming to the end of your PhD, if you're coming to the end of a postdoc, I think 1 year before the end of a position is when you should be looking for your next move and thinking about your next option. So you can see I did that 1 year before my PhD finished, and then I'm doing this 1 year before my fellowship is finishing. And I wanted to establish myself in the UK, and was very fortunate to get a senior lectureship at Queen Mary University of London, and I'm still also able to continue my research with my Race Against Dementia Fellowship. And kind of, I think the cycle continues. Obviously, funding has been quite a critical theme through this timeline, but I've had 2 smaller grants funded, which is great as I'm kind of establishing my lab, but I've also had 3 larger grants rejected. And it's this constant cycle of wins and losses that isn't always kind of taken account of in these sort of talks. So I think the brief on this was to kind of give some tips that might be useful. And I know you can probably find this information anywhere else, but at the same time, these are what I think are quite critical. And I think when you are thinking about those next steps, whether it's where to do your PhD postdoc or start your research group, is finding your academic fit. And I think in order to do that, say you're invited, I mean, even before invitation to an interview, I think you need to be preparing. Who would you be collaborating with when you get to that institute? What's your first grant going to look like? What might your first paper look like? Are you going to be bringing that research with you? Of course, for a lectureship, you have to be thinking about teaching as well. What do you want to lecture on? Do you want to lecture on what you already know, or do you want to branch out a bit? I think people see values in both. Would you be starting a new module or even a new course? And I think you have to be prepared for that in your applications and also in the interview situation. And then similarly for supervision, have you got experience of undergraduate supervision, postgraduate supervision, or even PhD supervision? Because these are things that you can be building up whilst you are a postdoc or a PhD student that will be vital for that next step. And then similarly, service. Academic service is a term that's batted around a lot, but at the same time, I don't think you should be doing things for the sake of doing things, but is there anywhere where you really think you can have impact and change and bring your input into a university? And similarly, when you get to that interview, or even when you're approaching other collaborators that you might be working with when you get to that university, what's in place for your success? Are the processes transparent? Because I think these really vary between institutes. And I think some examples of what's in place for success is, will people be there to help you with your grant development and writing? Will there be people there to mentor you? And I think this is really important. So I think one slide I wanted to introduce was the benefit of hindsight. I've obviously already introduced survivorship bias, but I think due diligence is really important. I think sometimes before joining a lab or an institute, you might only speak to one person and they can only say good things. But I think also you need to kind of spread the net out, speak to lots of people, because I think not everyone will always have a perfect experience of a lab or a university. And I think you cannot not do that as a young scientist. You really need to know that the environment you're going to is going to support you. I think one thing I'd say is visibility and networking. Going to conferences, meeting your peers and people senior to you is as important as your science. Some people are kind of just stay in the lab constantly, they just produce papers, but no one knows who they are. And I think visibility is also as important as your science, and to be able to find ways to do that. I think one of the other things is being able to set clear intentions for your career with any line managers, and also the ownership of science. When you're working on a project for 3 or 5 years as a postdoc, can you take that with you, or are you expected to find your own niche? It's very important to have those conversations early. And of course, find both internal and external mentors. One mentor cannot give you everything. I know that I cannot give the people that I mentor everything, so they should also find external mentors to give them other skills and kind of contributions that they might need. And I think planning's fine, but you need to be flexible, because I think I've come across a lot of people who might do a 2-year postdoc and then expect to get a lectureship. And I think you have to be flexible to that in academia, that you might have this clear trajectory planned out, but it can take you to other places. And of course, building resilience, and hopefully I've shown that by presenting balance today in kind of my wins and losses. So I was also asked a little bit about my future career plans. I think I've definitely found my academic fit here at Queen Mary University of London and the Blizzard Institute, which is really great. And I hope you all are able to do that too during your PhDs or postdocs, or as you start lectureships. I'm building a team and I want to support them in the best ways that I can. I think the big thing that I want to do, I work on fundamental biology, but I also want that to translate. And that's something that's really important to me. And I want to see that happen in my career. And I think I can do that in academia. And similarly, influence policy. I think worldwide, we should be kind of influencing policymakers to make our science and research as a whole important to economies, but also if we do work on disease areas, the realization that that is so important to our society. And I think one thing is just not pulling up the ladder, and hopefully through mentorship and various initiatives that I get involved in, that I'm not doing that, and that I'm making academia a better place than I found it. So just lastly, I think it's often I've presented maybe all these wins and all these losses, but I do really love academia, but I know that that can change over time. I've got a really supportive colleagues and environment that I'm working in. And I think one of the things is, particularly in academia, I feel like I'm never the smartest person in the room, and I really like that. And of course, you get that in most workplaces, but particularly for me, I think if for me to move now, I might not get exposure to students, and I really learn from my students and value. That's why I do love academia. I think it's not as distinct as it used to be, academia versus industry. And I think there's opportunities to work with industry and academia. And I think both are colliding, and similarly also the opportunity for spin outs, at least in the UK, and what was the situation in the US when I was there, is that you can kind of fuse academia with other opportunities. I think the research questions that I've chosen, there's lots of things to be answered there, and I can do that in my supportive environment in academia. And I think as well as just academia isn't perfect, but I feel now in this role, I do have this opportunity to be the change, and not pull up the ladder, like I said, and leave academia a better place than I found it. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to get involved in the discussions later and hear everyone else's kind of takes on academia. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Cara. That was great. It's really nice hearing, not only the positives and the successes that happened in your career, but also, highlighting the importance that sometimes you don't always get the grant and that you might have these obstacles. So, really thank you for being so transparent about that. So next, we are going to welcome our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Kristi DeBoeuf, who is a lecturer at Indiana University. So I will go ahead and pass it off to Kristi.
Hi, thank you very much, Afrida. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm so excited that Proteintech provides these kinds of opportunities to get to share, to get to collaborate with others as well. And so, as Afrida mentioned, I am a lecturer with the Psychological and Brain Sciences Department at Indiana University. And so a little bit of my backstory here. Currently, as I mentioned, I'm a lecturer. I primarily teach, and so I teach a range of courses. Intro psych, neuroscience is kind of my specialty. I teach a course on the history of the brain, so kind of combining history and the scientific perspective. My graduate work was geared towards neurodegenerative diseases, so I still teach some courses related to that, and I also teach a lab in behavioral neuroscience. Aside from coursework, I've had some opportunities to take part in some other organizations on campus. I take part in the Advanced College Project, ACP. I am the liaison for a department, and I also serve as an advisor for multiple groups on campus, including our neuroscience club. a little bit of my educational background. So I did my undergrad at Butler University, a small liberal arts school, and my major was psychology. At the time, they didn't have a neuroscience major. I think they do now, but that gives you a feel for the size of the school for the time period. Since it is March here in the United States, we celebrate March Madness, the college basketball NCAA tournament. So of course I have to insert a little plug here that I happen to be at Butler the couple of years that Butler went to the national championship game. And so that's kind of my claim to fame there as far as Butler goes. At Butler, I had an undergraduate advisor, Dr. Tara Lineweaver, who was really instrumental for me going forward. Did a lot of working memory type task, a lot of human participants. I also did some internships with the mental hospital in Indianapolis at the time, looking at schizophrenia, doing EEG type work. But then after that, I was more interested in getting a more cellular perspective. So my undergrad was primarily working with human participants. I was more interested in getting into that benchtop experience. And so I did my PhD work at Indiana University, where I pursued dual PhDs in psychology with a specialty in molecular and systems neuroscience, and then also neuroscience. My advisor there was Dr. Joseph Farley. And so you can see my lab group in 2019 when I graduated. Also noticed that I was very pregnant at the time of my defense. I was 6 months pregnant. And so I already had one child in graduate school. And so being able to talk a little bit about balancing family life in graduate school and in the early professional career is something that I would be happy to talk about further. But the type of work I did in my graduate career, I did a lot of electrophysiological techniques, primarily with Xenopus laevis oocytes. So these frog egg cells coming from the African clawed frog. And some of the techniques, I did 2 electrode voltage clamp. I did a lot of patch clamp, single channel type work. I did artificial membranes, black lipid membranes, tip dip methods, and then also some other benchtop type work doing Western blotting. And so what I was my primary research topic I was pursuing, I was always interested in neurodegeneration. I was interested in Alzheimer's disease. I had some personal experience with Alzheimer's disease. And so what I was doing was working with the voltage-gated potassium channel called Kv1.1 and looking at how it was affected by amyloid beta, which is one of these peptides that makes up those plaques that we see in Alzheimer's disease. And so this amyloid beta, it did suppress Kv1.1, and a lot of my work was using these various electrophysiological techniques, trying to understand what that mechanism was. And so while I was doing that graduate work, I also got to teach a couple of classes. One of the courses was one that was required by all graduate students for the time period. We had to lead a section of P211, which was our research methods for the time. And while I taught that, I won the Outstanding Graduate Student Instructor Award for that. And that was kind of my first indication that, hey, maybe I don't mind teaching and maybe it's something that I'm not too bad at. And so a couple of years later, when it was when we were needing some instructors to teach neuroscience, a 300 level course offered through our psych department, I was approached, asked if I'd be interested teaching again. And so I did. And I did that for at least 4 semesters as I was wrapping up my graduate work. And so that was really when I started shifting, when I started realizing that I had that heart for teaching and wanting to pursue positions that were going to allow me to better focus on that teaching. And so some of the things that really drew me to that teaching path, well, for one, I enjoyed that engagement with students. I enjoyed the interactions both within the classroom. I enjoyed meeting with them in office hours. I loved being part of what I would call that light bulb moment for students. And so as they're being introduced to these very key basic principles in neuroscience, I love getting to be part of that moment when you just, that aha moment when suddenly it clicked. And I realized that was something that I really thrived on. I also appreciated staying up to date with the literature. And I think that's something that hopefully we're kind of shifting away from this view that if you pursue a teaching track that you aren't as up to date on the literature, because I still very much am involved in the literature and incorporate into teaching. And so being able to stay up to date on what's going on has still been an integral part of teaching. And by pursuing a more teaching career path, getting to focus on teaching practices. And so I think, and maybe this, as Cara was saying, speaking about her own personal experience, I'll speak from my own personal experience. I think that some universities, particularly R1 universities that really emphasize research, that sometimes you don't see as much of that priority on what are some of these effective teaching strategies, especially when it comes to some of the quote harder sciences. And so being able to have a teaching path where I could still incorporate that research, but I could really focus on the pedagogical approaches was something that was important to me. And also being able to get involved in some of these campus organizations, do some of the outreach in the community, take part in some of these STEM, these STEAM events in the elementary schools was something else that I was really interested in pursuing. And then of course, family life. As I mentioned, I did have a child during graduate school. I was pregnant with my second one as I was defending. And so making choices that were going to be best for my family was also obviously a key aspect there. So what did I do from there? I realized I wanted to pursue teaching. I started looking at lecture positions. I was also looking at these visiting assistant professorship or the VAP positions, which tend to be a little more temporary, and had some opportunities to interview for these lecture positions. And typically how those interview processes worked for me, at least, was of course, doing the rounds of interviews, but then typically giving some kind of a job talk that was usually split between talking a little bit about my teaching philosophy and then giving kind of a sample lecture where I'm incorporating that teaching philosophy in that. And so what has life been for me as a lecturer? So my position is a 10-month appointment. And during that time, so the fall and the spring semester, I teach 5 classes, usually 2 classes one semester and 3 the other semester. My typical courses, I mentioned that at the beginning of my talk, that I typically teach intro psych, neuroscience-based classes, lab and behavioral neuroscience classes, neurodegenerative diseases. And that's something that I have had a lot of say in what classes I teach. And that's something that I've been very appreciative to IU, where I'm at currently, because I am asked, what would you like to teach? And I'm given some freedom as far as, well, if I'd like to develop a new course, that I have some of that flexibility as well. And so that's something that I very much have appreciated and won some teaching awards here at IU as well. So even though that's a 10-month appointment, I can teach over the summer if I would like to, usually 1 to 2 courses. I usually teach 1 class online, asynchronous, that's through the department. It's usually a neuroscience class. But I also take part in a program that IU offers called Intensive Freshman Seminar, or IFS. And the idea is that you have incoming freshmen that come to campus early. It's usually about 3 weeks before the fall semester starts. And they take a class, and it's a condensed, intensive class. We meet every day for several hours, and they tend to be specialty type courses. And so this has been kind of a fun experience that I've gotten to take part in. I developed a course called A Guided Tour of the Brain as told through exceptional case studies. And so we kind of select these just interesting stories in medical neuroscience, and we use that as kind of a starting point to then get into, well, what is the actual scientific explanation for these experiences? And so you're seeing one of my IFS classes over here to the right. That's actually from this past summer, where I had a all-female class, which was fun in a lot of ways. So the fine details of the lecture position. So because teaching is primarily my priority here, 85% teaching, 15% service is how my contract is written up. And usually that service is pretty flexible as far as what counts as service, serving on committees, doing some of these outreach opportunities. And then I have yearly meeting with advisory and promotion committee, similar to kind of your group that you have in your graduate career. The idea being that they support you, that they help you move forward and pursue opportunities going forward. And then typically we have what are called these peer teaching evals, where others in the department, we sit in on each other's classes and give each other feedback on how that's going. Some other opportunities I've had aside from teaching, I mentioned that I get to work with the Advanced College Project, ACP. I'm the departmental liaison for high school instructors that teach intro psych for college credit through IU. And so that has been an opportunity for me to get to serve in a mentorship type position with high school teachers and get to engage with these high school students as they're making that transition to college. I also serve as the advisor for the Neuroscience Club. And so that has been another one of these opportunities where I've been able to host some of these hands-on tutorials, doing sheep brain dissections, helping coordinate with some of these outreach opportunities in the broader community. The promotional track here, at least at IU, and I think is pretty similar at most other larger R1 institutions that have these teaching positions. I am currently in the lecturer position, but I'm in the process of doing my paperwork to go up for senior lecturer. I'm in year 5, and so this summer is when I am pulling together those materials, getting letter writers, and so that's something that I'm in the early stages of doing. And then IU has recently added another level up from senior lecturer, and it is the teaching professorship. And so that I think shows some real growth in the lecture line, the teaching line, that there are greater levels of promotion that are continually coming. And so ending on kind of my my tips, and some of these are a little bit vague because I think that they can apply in multiple parts of your life, both professionally and both personally, wherever your journey goes, whether that is going industry, whether that's going postdoc, whether that's going lecturer. Find value in what you do and feel valued. Whatever area you're in, feel like you are respected, feel like you're appreciated, feel like what you do matters, and that others value that as well. And I think that's such a key part in any job. And I think sometimes graduate students pursuing postdocs, there's this expectation that we should go through these really hard times where we don't have that support. And I'd like to think that that's changing, because you should feel value in whatever it is you do, wherever you go. Do not feel boxed into a certain path. That was something when I decided that I wanted to go the teaching route. I felt like there were some who thought that in some way, then that meant I was taking a lesser position than pursuing research, or that because I was going teaching, I wasn't going to be able to still do some research. And that's not necessarily the case, I think, in many places today, that if you are wanting to pursue research, you should still be able to do some teaching. If you want to pursue teaching, I know there are many cases where you can still incorporate some of the research as well. And so it's something that don't let someone else limit you in what you can do, and make sure you ask those types of questions. Find your people, both professionally and personally. Networking, those are all the things that we really push, I think, on graduate students. Make sure you go to conferences, make sure you reach out, make sure you network, and that is very important. But also find the people who are going to support you personally, who are going to be in the workplace, who are going to be friends, family members, wherever it is that you go. Find your people, they're there. And know what's out there in regards to both opportunities and resources. Be looking for those positions. But something that I didn't really know, even though I was interested in teaching as a graduate student, what some of the teaching resources were out there. And so I've included a few of those resources on this slide. That there is this Journal of Undergraduate Neuroscience Education. There's Faculty for Undergraduate Neuroscience. There are some of these organizations specifically for teaching psychology or neuroscience, and so they are definitely out there. And so with that, I will leave you. I do have 3 kiddos at home. I have a 6, 4, and a 2-year-old, and I am always happy to chat. My contact information here, including my email. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristi, for sharing all of that. I really liked that you touched on the fact that you might not immediately know, what you want to do when you start grad school. We get really fixated on our research topic and our research area that we don't realize that, there might be another route that we might want to take. So, the fact that you shared that you had this aha moment is really great. And, thank you so much for sharing that. And good luck with the senior lecturer position. I'm sure it'll be a really easy decision for IU. So,
Thank
all right, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Lukasz Chrobok. He is a lecturer at the University of Bristol. So I will go ahead and pass it off to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Proteintech, for having me here. I'm really enjoying this webinar. So my name is Lukasz Chrobok. I'm a lecturer in neuroscience at the University of Bristol, as Afrida mentioned. In my case, this lecturer role means I'm 50-50 teaching and researching here. But at the same time, 2 years ago, before my appointment, I started the Sir Henry Wellcome Postdoctoral Fellowship that I'm still also on, so it's kind of juggling between the fellowship role and the lecturer role. And my main scientific interest and the interest of my forming lab is most revolving around areas of circadian neuroscience. And circadian neuroscience is a part of biology that is interested in how our bodies, our brains generate those close to 24 hours rhythms that help us not only to react, but also to anticipate those daily changes in the environment. And I hope you can appreciate by this illustration that in the modern crazy world, the day and night are not always the best time cues for us, and we can really easily trick them. So my interest is in how we can help ourselves to boost our rhythms, for example, with time food intake, with time and meals. But to be able to pursue my career, to establish my own lab, of course, I had quite a journey to accomplish. So I'll try to take you briefly through that and show it wasn't always very successful. At the end, it still brought me here. So as you definitely hear from my accent, I'm not from the UK. I was born in Poland, and I've done my primary secondary education there as well. And in 2010, I had to choose my university course. I always wanted to pursue medicine, but this did not work to my plan. So I went to pursue a bachelor's in neuroscience, thinking that I'm just going to change it after a year and go straight back to medicine. Although after a year, I really fell in love with the topic. I fell in love with neuroscience. I knew that that's something that I really want to do in some form in my life. So I stuck to that. At the same university in Krakow in Poland, I also went to pursue a master's. Again, it's definitely different in different countries, but in Poland, you have to go through masters to go to PhD. But during my master's course, my first year, I came across this ministry program called Diamond Grant that I was really lucky to get, and this allowed me to jump straight to my PhD with my own project funding in hand. And this was a beautiful opportunity because it taught me so much about managing my own project, still in a very, safe and friendly environment of someone else's lab, but still with my own small funding. And I definitely felt very independent during this stage. In 2017, I made it. I had my viva and I achieved my PhD. And again, due to some funding from National Polish Science Center in Poland, I got funding for a 6-month salary to take it with me somewhere else abroad at the university of my choice. And I think, to be honest, when I was thinking about my career yesterday when I was preparing this presentation, I think maybe it has been the most, it was the most important step to get this funding and be able to do my first short postdoctoral stay in Manchester, where I definitely met wonderful people. Some of them are still my friends, and was able to pursue some really nice science. outside of the very comfortable lab that I was already very much used to, because I've done nearly 3 degrees there. So I think if you're able to do that during your PhD or straight after your PhD, try to go somewhere, just somewhere else. Doesn't really matter where and for how long, but this exposure was very valuable for me. So that's why I think it's very important to try to get yourself out of your comfort zone. It definitely was an experience out of my comfort zone to go to the UK and to try myself in a different lab. Basically see different people that do the same things in different ways, if it makes sense. So it was also a big test for me if I really like it, if I would like to be a researcher in the future, if I'd like to continue my academic career, maybe if I want to change it. So definitely, I was very lucky to be in a good place, in a good time. We've done some wonderful science, and those papers from this time are still a foundation of my lab now. So, so that was a very important step for me. Then after this short postdoctoral stay in Manchester, I came back to Poland because I was awarded my first postdoctoral fellowship. It was a junior fellowship that was split between Jagiellonian University in Krakow again and the University of Exeter in the UK. And of course, after a first postdoc, a lot of people do a second postdoc, third postdoc before their full independence and in their pathway to independence. For me, it was a postdoctoral fellowship, and I think it also had a lot of advantages. Maybe I should tell you briefly about differences. So with postdoc in Poland and the UK, you definitely work in someone's project. There is a big lab, there is a PI that is they're having their own vision that basically you fit into and work with them. With the junior fellowship, you're not that independent. You still are under someone's wings. You've got those mentors and the support network, although you're pursuing your own research project, even if it's very much related to the big lab, it's still your own small thing. So I think it really helps you to start your own research agenda, and it helps other people that you network with during conferences during this time to put the face to your project, to put your face to your research. And again, you can test if you like it. It's something in between being a PhD student or postdoc and being a PI, independent researcher, because you've got your project, maybe you still don't have people to manage, maybe just students, but it's something in between that you can always test your strengths there. And yeah, if you just enjoy it, because it's definitely very important to enjoy your academic journey. And during this time, I also obtained another degree in Poland. It's called habilitation or doctorate of science. It's not very unique to Poland. Some countries also do it, like I think Germany, maybe Italy, if I'm not wrong. It gives you a checkpoint that tells you that you should now be very much independent. And the next step you can do in Poland is to get to be an associate professor. So I had to choose something at this stage. I could have stayed in Poland. I guess I could have joined the esteemed group of professors of the Jagiellonian University, as you can see here in this painting of one of the most famous artists showing the professors in Krakow in 16th centuries, I guess. But that wasn't yet my idea. I wanted to do something else before I settle, let's say, and I went to Bristol to pursue my second postdoctoral fellowship, a little bit more senior, but still not this kind of fellowship that will give you your own lab, your postdocs and PhD students. I'm still, during this fellowship, 2 years in, 2 more years to go. But when I started this role here in Bristol, first I realized I really like the city, I really like this university, I like the research network here, I feel very comfortable here in this place, and I started to search for a job in academia in the UK. Yes, so it was a big search, and I was in a very comfortable position because I knew that I've got full 4 years for it, and I can just try and fail as many times as possible. So I searched and researched, maybe it looked more like that. And where did I search? And when I think it's good to search for independent positions. primary, try to chat to people in your research network, go to conferences. I think local conferences are maybe better than the huge ones at this stage, because you can comfortably talk to people that you already know, and you want to be in your comfortable bubble to start your lab. So maybe those people are best to ask for any open positions in their universities, because then you can work with them. Also, if you're able to sign yourself to any newsletters that are circulated by your research hubs, clubs, networks, or maybe even university, do it, because then maybe the job will find you. If you're interested in jobs at your university, as I was, because I'm still here in Bristol, definitely just ask around, have your eyes and ears open. And I find X, formerly known as Twitter, as a very valuable place of to look for jobs, to advertise jobs there, so for PhD student postdocs. As again, I know it's a bubble, but that's what you look for, because if you want to get a job, you want it to be in your very niche area. Of course, you can have a look more broadly in the internet. Again, I'm just talking from the very UK perspective, but jobs.ac.uk is definitely a page that you want to monitor on a daily basis. And of course, let's say social media like LinkedIn or ResearchGate are a good place to look at. So I find my job through my university network by chatting to my friends, although I also got this position in the newsletter. I also seen it on Twitter, and it was definitely here and jobs AC UK. So wherever you look, you can potentially find the same thing. It took me a while though. I had few attempts. I did not get my interview in the first attempt for sure, and that's, I think, very much normal, and we should definitely talk about it. That, you know, there are definitely more failures than successes in academia, and that's okay. But then yes, then I got my interview. I was super happy about it, and it's, if you get one, that's definitely time to celebrate. But for me also, very quickly, I started to be in despair, and I had no idea what to do next. So I would like to share a few tips, like personal tips, how to prepare for the interview. I know there is plenty of materials out there in the internet. You can definitely go through them. They will be much more structured than my spiel today. Although I would like to tell you things that I believe are the most valuable hints I got during my interview, and I would like to share it further with you now. I know it's very hard, sometimes it's just easy to say, but if that's possible, take some time off work and prepare for the interview. I was very lucky that I had my colleagues here in the lab doing experiments I couldn't do at this time, and I actually took more than a week off just to sit at home, just to think about it and really prepare for it, and it did pay off. Chat to your colleagues, especially more senior ones, that went through similar situations, maybe not super senior ones, just a little bit more senior, the ones that went through interviews quite recently, because then you definitely get the best sense of it. And it may sound silly, but watch some YouTube. For me, I had those 2 weeks before the interview to prepare for it, and I was really green at the beginning of it. So my learning curve was really steep. I watched a lot of content at YouTube, and there is a lot of very good one talking about academic interviews. Just beware that if you're looking for a job in the US, versus the job, for example, in the UK, you should be definitely consuming different content here, because there are a lot of differences when it comes to the academic culture, when it comes to the interview style that you should be aware of. The most important tip I got, and I think it paid off, was that during your interview or your interview process. It's mostly not on the panel, but probably will be some kind of presentation. Try to answer your exam questions. So for example, in my case, I was asked to prepare a presentation answering the question, what would I bring for the school, for the university in terms of research and teaching? Is a 50-50 role. So the worst thing that I could have done would be to talk about my last paper and how of a research star I am, wanted to impress the audience. That was not the research, that was not the exam question that I was told to prepare. So then talk about your vision regarding teaching equally as regarding research. Remember, diversity is your strength. If you're coming from another country or from a minority group, it is your strength, and play with it. Especially with the teaching roles, you will get students that come from very, very, very broad backgrounds, especially here in the UK. You get students that are coming from everywhere in the world. And I believe that being this student in a very hard situation, because studying is very hard, having this representation in your lecturers is also very important, because then you've got these role models that are very similar to you. So I think believing in yourself, that diversity is your strength, is very important. And the more practical hint here is organize some mock interviews with your colleagues. That really helped me. This really, really helped me to get to this, near to real situation, and test myself in the conversation resembling an interview. And the last slide, I just wanted to give you some tips for the interview itself. Again, that's another probably set of tutorials you can watch on, but top tips really: smile, be relatable, do your homework and know your interviewers, know their names, know what they're doing and what they do on the daily basis. Because interview is a conversation. No one wants you to talk, to answer question in a very structured way as a monologue that lasts 5 minutes. They want to be able to converse with you because they will work with you in the future. Also be confident, but of course not overconfident. I know it's hard to say. There is a balance, and again, it's probably different in different countries. You have to find this balance, how to sell yourself but not oversell yourself, and definitely not undersell yourself. And yes, forgot to mention, interview is definitely a marathon, not a sprint, and prepare yourself for the structure. For me, it was a research talk, then there was a mock teaching situation, then focus groups chatting with different academics about research, about teaching, there was a school tour, there was dinner, and then interview panel. So it's a long process you have to prepare yourself for. But you know what, I did it. I'm here, so I believe that you all can do it if you want. Sometimes it just takes a lot of time and a lot of failures, and it certainly took a lot of failures for me to be in this place. So my take-home message definitely will be good luck to you all. And also, I'm very happy to answer your questions if you have some in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lukasz. That was such great advice. And I really loved that you touched on the importance of, getting out of your comfort zone. It's so easy to be, stuck on a path that you think is correct based off of, what your PI has said or what others have told you is, the journey that you should be on. And so I think this panel is a really great example of how everyone really has their own customized path, and even a convoluted path might be the correct path for you. So, thank you very much. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce our last speaker for today, Dr. Phillip Adeniyi, who is a postdoctoral scholar at Oregon Health and Science University. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to you, Phillip.
Okay, thank you. I'm very honored for Proteintech for inviting me into this platform. I believe the participants will have enjoyed what we have here so far. And I'm here. I'm a postdoc scholar, and last year I became a ARDC Rex scholar as well. And talking about my education, I had my bachelor degree, a master's degree in anatomy from University of Ilorin, Nigeria. And in between that, after my master's in 2010, I was awarded in 2011. That makes it to look like I spent 2 years. And I was privileged to get a grant to visit University of Cagliari in Italy. And in 2013, and that helped me to be able to go for, because I would never have interest in traveling out of Nigeria for permanently until during my PhD. Therefore, during my PhD at OOU, Olabisi Onabanjo University, and in 2016, I secured a grant, actually 2 grants, to visit the LSU, Louisiana State University in US here for my PhD work. And I went back to home. And during that period, I was privileged. After my master's in human anatomy, I was privileged to teach at Olabisi Onabanjo Abuad, Afrida University. We call it Abuad, in Adokiti, Nigeria. I taught anatomy to medical students, nursing, MLS, anatomy and physiology students there. And thereafter, I moved to LSU for my postdoctoral fellowship through the award. And so I was privileged if I worked more on LSU physiology. And between 2019, 2020, and it was a productive year for me. I was able to get about 4 publications. I think the 5th one just came out about 2 weeks ago. And then during that period, actually, I attempted to start looking for a job in 2019, towards before pandemic. And I did a couple of interviews, but I call myself into order. I said, getting the job is not the issue, because I'm actually interested in teaching and doing research. Then I discovered that I need more network in order to do that, and I need more basic. Therefore, I had to leave my comfort zone, and I moved to OHSU in the middle of pandemic. I joined OHSU in October 2020. Precisely, I resumed here on November 1. And when I moved into OHSU, working on Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia using human brain, because I love teaching and neuroanatomy. Therefore, I was drawn into working with human brain. I believe that would give me more portfolio when I want to join academia full as an assistant professor. But I was confronted with a challenge of lipofuscin autofluorescence, which I can't believe that since the advent of microscopy, confocal microscopy, the problem has not been solved. Therefore, we could not image fluorescence in human brain because of high lipofuscin autofluorescence. Therefore, I had to came up with a new innovative techniques on how to eliminate that, and that one got published, I think 2022. Then that helped give me an opportunity for us to move further and to dive into the real mechanism of actions of what happened. And last year, we were lucky to get that paper published in Annals of Neurology, and we make it to the cover page. And it was actually, the research was well accepted worldwide, and in fact, we make it to the top discovery for the OHSU, and a lot of publications cover it. In fact, we were interviewed by 2 TV stations here on our great discovery. And therefore, that gave me, in the last 2-3 years, I was able to get 3 papers out of the lab. I said, okay, now is the next for me to move for the future direction and to be able to continue my work. And just as Lukasz said, I've been engaging in interview. In fact, I've done a couple of in-person interview in the last 6 months. I think one thing I would share with my experience is you need to apply, looking through online, different platforms, sign off to alerts. As for me here, I'm in US. If I go to neuro jobs, and I used to being an anatomist too, I look for an anatomy job, either of them that come, either neuroscience, pure neuroscience, or anatomy that I'll be able to teach neuroscience. And then the first thing I've done, couple of interviews. In fact, yesterday I did a phone interview yesterday at 1 p.m. here, local time. I have opportunity also to be invited for 2 of the chalk talks in which I presented my current work. Though the most awkward one was the one they gave me topic, and they wanted me to pretend to be teaching students. That looked awkward. And the next thing that's likely to next thing is after you have been accepted, which I've not got anyone for now. They have been telling me just to wait, is to get your offer and negotiate. Just as we have been told by Lukasz and other people too, is you need to network. I began to look more deliberately to network in between, within my network here at OHSU, outside the Oregon, and within the network that I have. If I attend a webinar like the interview I did yesterday was actually was as a result of my network with AJ, who is at the Vanderbilt University, who was the one that recommended me for that job, and it came up through, though it's more of a teaching. And the hardware, I just narrated something that looks very smooth. It's not that smooth at the beginning. What helped me is my interaction with IBRO. I don't know how many of you know that, International Brain for Research Organization. I came in contact with IBRO in the year 2008. And when I finished my bachelor degree, and I became a member of the IBRO. Then you can become a member. Now there's no more membership. And that helped me to be to launch into the neuroscience world. And in 2010, I became a member of International Society for Neurochemistry, and I became a member of Africa, the SONA. That helped me to be able to attract beautiful grants, which I will talk about later. And locally, I was doing good well myself too. I became a member of Nigerian Society for Neuroscience, member of Anatomical Society of Nigeria, and thereafter we found while I was in Abuad, we founded NRG, Neuroscience Research Group, which is a local chapter for the NSN, and we're able to educate our students. I love creating Brain Awareness Week. I won several Brain Awareness fund by IBRO and Dan Alliance for creating a Brain Awareness Week in Nigeria, and that helped because of my love for neuroscience. And the IBRO specifically, as you can see, that I became a cover page in 2019, 2020. IBRO helped me. I was able to go to IBRO school in 2011, Ibadan school 2011, IBRO with the support of IBRO. And 2012, I was able to attend the SFN Neuroscience Conference for the first time with the help of, by winning the IBRO SFN Travel Award. Then 2013, I was able to be invited to Morocco to speak as an IBRO alumni in the symposium there. And I moved forward in 2015, I won the Bursary Award that supported my travel to LSU for my PhD work. In 2017, I was at the University of Cape Town, UCT, for advanced neuroscience training, through which I built a network with MRF in Canada that we wrote a review and grant together. In 2018, I was able to went back to the UCT as well for another advanced training. And that is the story about the IBRO. Now, what's helped my career profoundly, just as IBRO is ISN, currently, I'm a member of YSSC Young Steering Committee. I represent Africa, and I'm on the platform. And I'm the coordinator for ISN Ambassadorship Program. Therefore, what we do with that is we help mentee all young neurochemists around the world to help us to create awareness about neurochemistry and neuroscience globally. If you're interested, please check the ISN website and you'll be able to apply. You can send an email to me if you want to be an ambassador to represent your country, because we want diversity, as Lukasz said, because diversity is our strength. As I said, I joined the ISN 2010. They helped me to go to Italy by supporting me with a travel grant. And in 2016, they also supported me to visit Italy for LSU for my PhD work, with another support of the DMM disease mechanism model. And in 2016, I attended the first flagship school in Albach, Austria, which the 40 young neuroscientists were picked worldwide, and we camped for about 2 weeks to train on neuroplasticity. And at the end of the school, we were able to come up with a review that has been cited widely now. And that helped me to be able to attend the Honolulu conference, which I was able to present our work in 2022 as well. I was one of the young social speakers out there that spoke at the conference. Now, as I said, the career development can be challenging. I have a lot of them. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I did not do my PhD at the University of Illinois, because of the hostile community that were available to me there. Now, what are the challenges that affect the landscape? I just posted this on my mentorship platform yesterday, and I discovered that majority of young Africans believe that the fund is the impediment. The second, followed by the inclusions, because mentorship is the challenge, followed by the number 4 is the diversity, and I think the least seems to be the leadership. And these are the diversity of people that responded to the questionnaire I posted just for purpose of this to my talk. And now, in order to, as you can see, you said they said that the number 1 is inclusion. In order for us to do that, at the brain awareness in 2019, I was able to found the mentorship platform for African. Therefore, I created African Young Scientists, because we wanted to produce, our mission is to build the next generation of scientists across Africa that will affect the global community. And therefore, what we do there is to create brain awareness program to be able to mentor, because we know that we need diversity. And this is what we do. We have a mentorship opportunity. We have a lot of mentors. And you can see currently we have about 150 mentee that we accepted on the platform. And you can see the diversity of our mentors here. This is just our bulletin. I just want to show the scope of what we do. And the conclusion, to wrap up what being said and what I said is that if you want to go into academics, one thing you need to do is to first set a clear goal, followed by developing a good networking skills. And how to do that is by attending conferences, is by I'm currently available on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, even Facebook, and ResearchGate. If someone is doing something that you like, send a request to them and follow up by email. Develop your communication skill, because your ability to communicate your work help people to believe in you. And another thing is look for someone to mentor you. Mentorship matters, as I presented. You can see mentorship matters, and especially someone coming from Africa or minority group around the world. You may be judged negatively at the first contact. People may not believe in you. They don't know what you can offer, but you just have to have ability to communicate your strength across with a short time. And I have to be careful of the imposter syndrome. Another thing that mitigates your goal, that can stop you achieving your goal, is an imposter syndrome. What is an imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is feeling that you did not qualify. It's a good thing to feel that, but it can have a negative angle, because if you have it seems that it helps you that you don't have overconfidence. It's something that keeps you in check, that it help humble you and give you appetite to want to be a better person. But don't let that overwhelm you, because that's the negative side. It can overwhelm you, and it can hurt you even not to go for what you are qualified for at the right sense. Be careful of the imposter syndrome. And another thing, as you do that, you must develop your soft skills. What are the soft skills? Ability to market yourself, ability to network with others, ability to be able to read scientific journals and understand and digest them. One of those things that gave me the chance to be able to work at OHSU here was what I believe. After my interview, my current boss now sent me a proposal that I want a grant, and they asked me, Philip, how will you go with this work? And I was able to dissect the work, the grant, and I was able to say, okay, this is data, this is how to do the data presentation, this is what I want to do, this is how I will present. In fact, I was so surprised when I presented it to a friend of mine who's an assistant professor, and I said, Philip, where do you get this data from? I said, simulate it. Oh, wow, okay, make sure when you're talking about that, make sure you tell him that I actually simulated it for him to believe. And I did that. Within 24 hours, I got my letter of acceptance. And make sure work. And the last one I will talk about here on this slide is the work-life balance. Actually, likely it's not like scale. Don't try to make it 40, 50, 30, 70. But one thing important about work-life balance is that try to rest. Try to have enough time for you to rest. Many people, to do good science, you need time. And if you overwork yourself, you may not be able to do good science at the end of the day. It pains me that some years ago I was at LSU, I saw a senior scientist close down his lab because he was sick. And therefore, your body is very, very important because you can't do anything else. You can't do anything outside your body. Please try to take care of your body. Therefore, I will take you. This is my last conclusion. Once again, I want to thank Proteintech for this event. And if you want to follow us on AYS, you have a platform, and I'm reaching you from Portland, Oregon here. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Phillip. You touched on some really important topics, and thank you for sharing your experiences and also the importance of joining associations and societies for networking and the importance of mentorship. I also really liked that you touched on the imposter syndrome, because I don't know if that ever goes away, even after you've been at a job for a few years, but it's really important to stay confident and realize that you really are the expert, and that's why you got the job in the first place. So thank you so much. And so with that, I think we can go ahead and begin our Q&A session. So if all the speakers want to start their cameras again. We have some really great questions that have been coming in. So we have a few that are selected. So the first question is for Cara. Were you always sure that you wanted to stay in academia, or did you want to try something new, and this is the path that ended up working out well for you?
So I think, like I alluded to in my talk, academia is all I've ever known, and I do have that fear of kind of leaving. I think now it's a little bit better. A lot of the PhDs, you get opportunities to internship, either in industry or maybe in patent law, lots of different other career paths. And maybe if I'd tested something else out, I'd have decided, no, I need to do that. But I think it's a lot of people now take on portfolio careers. So I think at some point I might see myself doing something different. But right now, whilst I'm enjoying it and I've not known any different, then I think that's why I'm staying here. But it's not to be said that I might pursue something different in future.
Great, thank you. Our next question is for Kristi, but I think other people can answer it depending on whether you are also a parent. But there were a few questions that were talking about, whether it's realistic to pursue a successful academic career while wanting to have a family. And I think, Kristi, you're a really great example of this, having 3 children. So do you want to touch a little bit on, how do you do that?
Yeah, I'm still figuring that out, so I won't seem like I have all the answers, but so much I think is dependent on who you surround yourself with, what your situation is, and finding that supportive fit. And that's why I kind of ended my PowerPoint with feel valued and find your people, because I think that applies both in your professional career and also in your personal life. I was in a situation where I did feel support from my my PhD advisor. I did feel like it was okay for me to step away. I still didn't step away for very long, you know, really maybe just a handful of weeks, and even then I was still involved. But I did feel like I could step away at times as needed, and you know, I mentioned that I was expecting when I defended, and so I think that I did come from a position where I was supported. And then going forward, I had the third child while I was teaching as a lecturer. And it's tough, you know, you can say that, you know, oh, I had the right people around me and it was all fine, it was all okay. And even then, it's still hard. And trying to figure out, how do you balance taking some kind of a parental leave with your coursework, with some of your other responsibilities, whether that is just running organizations, whether it's doing actual lab work, overseeing students. How do you keep those things running? And it's hard. It was a little bit. I had some really great students, graduate students, undergrads who were willing to kind of step in situations. And I hope that we are continually moving to a place where we can be more supportive and embracing of parents, you know, welcoming families, because I think historically, I'm not sure that we have the best track record as far as, you know, supporting families in science, especially in research, but I hope that we are moving that way.
Thanks, Kristi. Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. Admittedly, like that was one of the reasons why I was afraid of staying in academia. One of the reasons I pursued an industry position instead. But it is really amazing to see you and all the other working parents who have stayed in academia. And I'm really happy to see that, you know, it is changing and there is more support. Were there any other speakers that wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I would love to share my unique experience, though I know it's harder for the mother than the father, but I believe I had a very not very pleasant experience when I moved down here to US. My wife and children could not join. I have 3 children. The oldest is 11 and the youngest is 7. And therefore, they could not join me until 2023. 2022, yeah, therefore it was tough. We are trying to move from visa. It's not a good experience. I left my young girl, she was less than 2, and I met her probably after 6 or so, or 5. Therefore, it could be tough, but it's good to have, I think what I tell my mentee is, you just have to, when you begin that, in fact, I just sensed to someone yesterday that now you do what you need to do now that you are free and highly mobile. I know he may not understand what I mean by that. I just use that one to start a negotiation, initiation of discussion. The question is, the first thing we need to do is to just try as possible to have an understandable partner who will be able to take the pressure. And, you know, I can't imagine how my wife alone was able to do that for about 3 years or so at home, running those things before they join me. But just as to pay, sometimes we need to pay forward and try to make sure that we are available when we are available, and try to, even here now, sometimes if I want to go, I was in California for size microscope about 3 weeks ago. Then we had to just go out. My wife would leave the office on time, and the children. Therefore, it's not easy. It's about compromise and try to put in your best when you are available. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I can't even imagine. I always feel like, you know, I travel a lot for my job. And so, you know, if I'm gone for 3 or 4 days, I come back and I'm like, I've missed so much. So I really can't imagine going through what you went through. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So our next question is going to be for Lukasz. So how do you find your research niche? So did you take some elements of your PhD and postdoc to build a new research topic, or was it different from your PI?
That is definitely very tricky, and I think Cara talked about it a little bit in her presentation as well. And I believe that the conversation is very important, and to be open with your PI to try to figure out what's uniquely yours and what's uniquely theirs. And I also believe that good PI probably would love you to be independent and would love you to pursue your career, and will also have an advice for you. What is the pathway that you should take to be more distinct from your previous lab? And definitely, I think going through the fellowship process rather than from maybe postdoc straight to the position made it a little bit easier for me, because I had something that was more objectively mine, let's say, although it was still, of course, a topic of the lab that I was doing it in. So it's still very tricky, although it takes a lot of conversation. It takes a lot of careful thought in what my pathway is going to be, how to be distinct from your previous lab, and how to make yourself known for being in this little niche. So it's definitely more of a progress. It does not have to happen from day to day, and I would just, again, wrapping this up, stress that the conversation with those PIs is definitely the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think another thing is we tend to have this fear of changing our research topic, and that I think is something that we should realize that it's okay to do that. I remember I had a instructor at IU, actually, when I was in grad school, who was a social psychologist, but he did his PhD and postdoc in a molecular biology lab, and then realized he wanted to be a social psychologist. And so that's kind of an extreme change, but we forget that we learn a lot of techniques in our PhD that are transferable skills that we learn how to learn, and so we can always pick up a new topic, a new research area and interest. So thank you so much for sharing that.
If I were to add a little thing here, I know that we're talking about academic career and how to stay in academia. I think that's probably the goal of this webinar. But I also think that we underestimate ourselves here, and we forget that those skills that we find to be very specific, and doing electrophysiology or patch clamp, I think most of us here are electrophysiologists today, but those little skills that we have and we think that are only applicable to our little tiny field, that is not true, because these are all transferable skills that you can also take with you to other fields of science, yes, but also to industry. And we definitely forget that going through these academic journeys gives us so many different skills, not only those soft skills, but transferable skills that we can do loads of things with later.
Yeah, I mean, and absolutely, it's all about keeping that an open mind, and but also not writing off academia. I think that's essentially what happens for a lot of people when there are certain things where they're just like, well, I'm just going to go look for an industry job, but you can also use these transferable skills in other positions in academia as well. And so, yeah. Okay, so moving on to our next question. Our next question is for Phillip. So you mentioned, a lot of associations that you were involved with. How do you go about finding these types of associations that you can join and participate in?
That's okay, great. That's a good question. Yes, I think the first thing is your field of interest, and try to belong to a local chapter that will help you, because that helps you to network. Then from there, it's always like 3 tiers, right? Your local chapter, probably your institutional. Like here now, tomorrow there will be bond meeting here. Bond is a people biology of neuroscience disease, which is OHSU. In fact, it cut across 3 or 4 universities in Oregon. Then you move to another chapter layer. About 2 weeks ago, I was able to present as one of the Nano Symposium speaker at the SFN chapter of Oregon and Washington. Now, that is a second layer. Now, next month, I'll be speaking at the ASN, as an American Society for Neurochemistry. Therefore, join that one. Some of them needed membership. Then SFN is a national one. Therefore, trying to join that, as many as you can. Like, that's one line. For instance, neurochemistry is another subdivision of neuroscience. Then I joined that, and that also gave me privilege. If you're an international student, there's a free $4,000 US dollar that you can use to visit another country that are provided for you for free on that platform. And if you join for the first 2 years, you don't have to pay. And if you're an ambassador, and I said I'm coordinating the ambassadorship program there, we give you token of amount of money to create awareness in your local chapter where you are. And currently, we just approved for a guy in Brazil. People have organized something like that in Uganda, Chile, and so on and so forth. Therefore, what you need to do is to just make sure you join and help yourself, because from there you can network. There's nothing that's helped my career other than networking through neuroscience community, because that is what helped me to build my base. I can. If you remove society out of my life, it's probably nothing that I will have achieved. Therefore, you can do that through that networking. It helps you to know more people. If you are a graduate student, it helps you to know where to do for your postdoc, and it can help you to probably get a job as well.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I think we have time for one more question. This I'm going to kind of open up to everyone. So there were a couple of questions about, how do you go about demonstrating your research capabilities if you don't have a published article?
I can start with that because I think I alluded to that when I was coming to find postdoc positions. So at that point, I think hopefully there's opportunities for you to maybe do a review if you've not got your research work out there already, or is there any way that if there's other people in the lab or your center, can you kind of get on their work by helping them in their project and getting a co-authorship? I think that's one of the things that can happen. At least you've been able to contribute there. But I think part of it as well is that if you're presenting your data at conferences, it is a work in progress. And then I think there's also the push that if you are going through or ready to go through the peer review process, get your work on bioRxiv. Hopefully you'd have a supportive mentor to get your work onto bioRxiv, but that's ways to demonstrate before, I think, the peer review process. And then hopefully you've got colleagues or your PI who can give the reference to say that, yes, this work's been done, it'll get published, but just in due course. And I think those were the things that kind of reassured my postdoc mentor that I was moving to, that this person's fine, they are publishable, and that sort of thing.
Great, thank you so much, Cara. Yeah, I agree. bioRxiv was such a great introduction to research. So yeah, it's a great way of showing productivity. Are there any other comments from the speakers on that topic?
Yeah, I think she has said it. One thing, if you have a research, you know yourself that you have the skills, but you don't have many publications to show it. Is the question: do you have good PI, a mentor that can speak on your behalf? That is the next thing. And if you do, congratulations. If you don't, can you get those work into meetings, to attend meetings, conferences? From there, people will come there and try as much as possible to prepare so highly that people believe what you are presenting. Having data is good, but how to present your data is more valuable. Therefore, data presentation is also more valuable. Therefore, try to make sure if you can get it to oral presentation, that would be great. If not, just go for poster and make sure you invite people, attend people's meeting. I've had people that are doing your work, attend it, and from there ask questions about what they do, and let them know that you are also having a talk. It's like inviting them that, oh, tomorrow will be my poster session. You won't mind? try to come. And when they come, as you talk, make sure you devote a half of the time you talk for them with their poster, and next thing, do it for your marketing. Let them know that you are just graduating and you are looking for a position. That will be helpful for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, poster sessions are really going to help you. Additionally, even maybe looking for collaborations where maybe you can, do a little bit where you get, a publication with another lab per se. Maybe your lab is small, and so projects come out really slowly, because I was in a lab where I was the only graduate student for a little while. And I know Kristi can also attest to this, coming from a small lab as well. It's difficult to get, you see other people publishing so much, and it gets really disheartening. And you just have to remember that your situation is different, and there's really other ways that you can showcase that you have these
yes. And lastly on that, if you are coming from international small and developing countries, try to apply for small grants that will allow you to visit a lab. You may not get the position directly, but you can apply for fellowship to allow you to study. If you are able to prove yourself with that grant, then you can now continue extensions of your work, because especially if you are coming from developing nations, it's hard for them to trust you that we are doing something great, because even most of the paper you have, you may not even in the great journals. Academics is highly discriminatory. Therefore, you may have to prove yourself through fellowship, and from there you have your footing.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the speakers for, talking about your journey today, and thank you for everyone who attended. I just wanted to share some resources that we have available at Proteintech, just a couple outro slides before I end the webinar here. So we do have an early career researcher hub at on our website, where we have past events like this. We have other career resources such as blogs. We talk about our travel grants and mentorship awards, and you can also see interviews with other early career researchers. So if you scan the QR code, it'll send you directly there. We also have a lot of career development blogs as well. So things like creating a top-notch LinkedIn profile, how to network at conferences, how to make a poster, things like that. So definitely check out our blog page too. And so with that, I just want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank the speakers once again, all wonderful talks that I hope everyone found valuable. So as an attendee of today's webinar, you will receive a certificate of attendance and a recording of this webinar too. We will send a follow-up email with these details. Please do allow 1 week. And here we also have listed the emails of our speakers today. So feel free to reach out to them if you have any further questions. Connect with them on LinkedIn. And then if you liked today's event and want to know about our upcoming events, please do follow us on our social media, because we post about our upcoming webinars and workshops. And if you have any other questions after this webinar is over, you can always email us at events@ptglab.com. So with that, I will go ahead and end the webinar, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.